There is a name that appears in the Bible more than almost any other name connected to war and hatred. It is a name that God vowed with all his power to eliminate from the ends of the earth. The name is Amalek, and the command given against them is this: destroy every man, woman, child, and animal. Leave nothing behind, do not spare them, and erase even their memory from the face of the earth. For thousands of years, people have read those words and asked the same question: why? What did the Amalekites do that was so terrible that God himself declared an eternal war against them from generation to generation? And why does their name still appear in the headlines of newspapers today? The answer begins not on a battlefield, but inside a family, and like most of the deepest hatreds in human history, it starts not with strangers but with brothers, born from a broken family, the root of eternal hatred. Esau was the firstborn son of Isaac. In the ancient world, that meant everything. The firstborn received the largest inheritance, the father's blessing, and the honor of carrying the family name forward. But through a combination of a bowl of soup and a moment of deception by his brother Jacob, Esau lost his birthright and then his blessing. He was left with nothing except the tears running down his face and a fury burning in his chest that he could not put out. Amalek was the grandson of Esau. Born to Esau's son Eliphaz and a woman named Timnah, Amalek grew up in that bitterness, the way a child absorbs everything they see at home. He learned early that Jacob's family had taken what should have belonged to his grandfather, and that lesson became the identity of his people. It became the thing they built their lives around. Rabbinic tradition adds that Timnah, Amalek's mother, had once tried to join the household of Abraham but was turned away and rejected. From that rejected woman and that bitter man, a people was born whose entire existence seemed shaped by the pain of being cast aside. The attack that started the eternal war, Rephidim. The moment that locked Israel and Amalek into permanent war did not happen on a prepared battlefield. It happened on a road, and the people being attacked were not soldiers. The Israelites had just walked out of Egypt. They had seen the 10 plagues tear apart the most powerful empire in the ancient world, and had crossed the Red Sea on dry ground, while the waters stood on both sides like walls. The fear of Israel had fallen on every nation in the region. Every person in that part of the world had heard what happened and was afraid to touch them. And then the Amalekites appeared. Not at the front of the column where the warriors marched, but at the back, where the elderly stumbled forward. The sick dragged themselves step by step, and mothers carried exhausted children who could not walk anymore. Deuteronomy records the nature of the attack with words that carry the weight of deep moral horror. They met you on the way and struck down all who were lagging behind, the faint and the weary, and they did not fear God. And in the ancient Near East, where hospitality to desert travelers was one of the most sacred duties a person could carry out, attacking the sick and the defenseless was not simply cruelty. It was a statement about what kind of people you were and what you believed about the world. The battle that followed was fought on 2 levels at the same time. Joshua led the fighters on the ground below. Moses stood on a hill above, holding his staff raised toward the sky, with Aaron and Hur holding his exhausted arms on either side, until the sun finally went down and Israel won. When it was over, Moses built an altar and made a declaration that has echoed through every generation since: the Lord will be at war with Amalek from generation to generation. The king who could not finish it, Saul, Agag, and the cost of mercy. Centuries passed and Israel got its first king. His name was Saul, and the prophet Samuel delivered him a command that left no room for questions. The moment had arrived to carry out the judgment that had been declared on that altar. Go, Samuel told him, and destroy the Amalekites completely. Do not spare anything. Saul went and defeated the Amalekites. But he brought something back that he was not supposed to bring. He brought back the Amalekite king, a man named Agag, alive, and he kept the best of the sheep and the cattle, telling himself the people wanted to offer them as sacrifice to God. He kept what looked valuable and destroyed what seemed worthless, and in doing so, he disobeyed the entire point of what he had been sent to do. When Samuel arrived and heard the sound of livestock, he gave Saul words that have been quoted across thousands of years of teaching. To obey is better than sacrifice. And then he told Saul the consequence. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord has rejected you as king. Samuel then called for Agag. The Amalekite king walked toward him with a certain confidence, believing the danger had passed. Samuel executed him there in Gilgal. But the damage of Saul's partial obedience had already been done because some Amalekites had escaped and the seed was still alive. 500 years later, the rematch in Persia. 5 centuries after that field in Gilgal, a man named Haman walked into the court of the Persian king Xerxes and was given a position of nearly unlimited power. The book of Esther introduces him with words that Jewish readers in every generation have recognized as a warning: the son of Hammedatha the Agagite. Agagite is a descendant of Agag, the king that Saul had let live. The Jewish man who refused to bow before Haman was named Mordecai, and his lineage traced back through the same family line as King Saul. The 2 men standing in that Persian corridor were not strangers continuing a random feud. They were the inheritors of a war that had been declared centuries before they were born, playing out its final chapter in a palace in Susa. When Mordecai refused to bow, Haman did not seek revenge against one man. He sought to kill every Jewish man, woman, and child in all 127 provinces of the Persian Empire. The pattern had not changed in 500 years. What Haman planned was total destruction, which means to target everyone and leave nothing behind. It was Rephidim again, only this time the battlefield was an imperial court, and the weapon was a signed decree instead of a sword. Through the extraordinary courage of a young Jewish queen named Esther, who risked her life to approach the king without being summoned, the plot was uncovered and overturned completely. Haman was hanged on the very gallows he had built to execute Mordecai. The day that was supposed to be the day of Jewish destruction became the day of Jewish survival, and it has been celebrated as Purim ever since. To this day, in synagogues around the world, whenever the name of Haman is read aloud from the book of Esther, the entire congregation makes loud noise with ratchet noisemakers called graggers to symbolically drown out his name, fulfilling in celebration the ancient command to erase the memory of Amalek. The deepest secret, Amalek as the voice of doubt. Here is something that almost no one outside of deep biblical scholarship knows about this story. The Hebrew letters that spell the word Amalek add up to the number 240. So do the Hebrew letters that spell the word Saphek, and Saphek means doubt. The ancient teachers said this was not a coincidence. Amalek, they said, is not just a people. It is a force, cold, quiet voice inside a person that says, none of this matters. The world runs on chance with no purpose. Why bother trying? It is the cynicism that cools every fire and dims every light before it can grow into something real. Think about the timing of the attack at Rephidim. It came immediately after the Israelites asked the most dangerous question of their journey: is God really with us or not? They had seen the sea split. They had crossed on dry ground and they still doubted. And in the very next moment, Amalek appeared, physically embodying the cold doubt that had just settled into the people's hearts. The rabbis read this as a direct spiritual connection. When faith cooled, the enemy, who was coldness itself, arrived. The Amalekites as a physical nation no longer exist. The ancient Assyrian king who conquered much of the known world forcibly mixed all the nations together until no single bloodline could be traced. The literal commandment against Amalek has been declared legally impossible to carry out today, but the memory of Amalek has never faded. After the Holocaust, the ancient words from Deuteronomy appeared on memorial walls and in museum archives. Remember what Amalek did to you. For a people that had just seen 6 million of their own destroyed, those words were not ancient history. They were the present moment written in older ink.